All right, so let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome everybody, and the standard disclaimer here that we are recording, and you'll be able to see this up on YouTube within a couple of days. So welcome and thanks everybody for coming. This is our last meeting for the season. Unfortunately, that was. And it's kind of the last meeting in a way that I had not intended it to be the last meeting. I was kind of hoping that we would actually have a game before our last meeting to follow, and a game actually beforehand, a game to talk about, and we've got neither one. That was a pretty brutal. I'd eaten lunch, I had the TV on, it was on the right channel, I was just kind of finishing up the dishes, and I said, wait a second, what did he just say? Because the TV's in the other room, and I hear him talk about I say, no, wait, did he just say the game was canceled? And I look in the big scroll on there and said, yeah, game was canceled. So kind of kicked me out. But I got to tell you that though I feel so bad for the players. I mean, to be on the bus, all psyched up, ready, ready to play, excited about the game, and then just to have it not happen. That's just brutal. So, but it is what it is, and there's nothing should be a surprise this year. So that's where we're at. So given the last meeting, just a couple of things. Want to thank everybody that has been coming to the and signing on to Zoom. For these meetings and supporting the club and being here. It's made it a lot better. I think this has worked out pretty well. Being on Zoom has given us some good opportunities actually, and my goal was to take advantage of that, and like one of them to be able to get some speakers that normally we might not be able to get. I tried very hard in the past years to get the Chancellor and Janet Napolitano, and neither one, they wanted to come, but the calendars just didn't marry up. But being on Zoom, it gave us that opportunity, and there's no way we would have ever had Rich Campbell here from Colorado. So, it got us some speakers that we weren't able to get. And also it was the opportunity for people that out of town to join the meeting. Like Greg is here. He's been to a number of the meetings from, coming in from San Ramon. And I know Rick, it's tough to sometimes to get in from Davis. So he's been able to show up at the meeting. So that's been a kind of an advantage of it. Being on Zoom though, I mean, one of the questions I asked the Chancellor this, and I asked this question for Jim, for Justin Wilcox, for those of you that were on the insiders meeting last week, that the changes that you've made, for the pandemic, what are some of the things that you're going to keep that worked out well, and that's going to work out for us for Club too. That some of the things that are going to continue is we're going to use Zoom a lot more. We're hopefully we'll be able to go back to in-person meetings, but maybe we'll be able to have some of the speakers that we would like to get that can't get up here, have them call in on Zoom, and get people like Will every meeting to join us, and so things like that. And maybe we'll take a look at maybe even doing some of the meetings, live broadcast on Zoom, even though that we're in person. So there's a lot of, a lot of advantages that, that we may continue on. So be kind of looking for that. So actually, we have first on the agenda. I'm gonna actually turn the meeting over to Joe, who has something he'd like to chat about. So Joe,
oh yeah, hey, thanks, Gary. I think I'm off mute here. Yep.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one last mention of Jeff Wong before we wind up the season. And a little bit of background. Until Jeff mentioned it at one of our meetings last year, I never knew he was a published author who had written a book about his days at Cal. And after that meeting, I thanked him. I told him I took a peek at his book on Amazon during the meeting. I thought it looked interesting and I was going to go home and buy it. Well, his response was, Joe, don't waste your money. I have a few promotional copies and I will send you one, which he did a couple of days later. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed the book, which is called A Golden State of Mind. If you're not familiar with it, It's humorous. It's somewhat biting at times. I suspect it's more than a bit autobiographical, and it's never dull. Now, I was hoping to bring it to a meeting this year, pay it forward, give it to one of you guys who perhaps hasn't read it yet and would be interested. Needless to say, that obviously couldn't happen, but I will be happy to send it to one of you if you want it. Just drop me an email with your address. I'll read my email address right now, and then I'll go ahead and put it on the chat as the meeting progresses if I can figure out how to do it. But you can drop me an email at joejsel@gmail.com, and I will get it in the mail to you. And it actually includes a sequel as well. He did a sequel called Golden Days. And again, very interesting book.
Joe, could you repeat that again? Repeat
Yeah,
it.
it's joejsel@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Thank
give me
you.
your mailing address and it'll go out in the next couple of days.
All right, yeah, thanks, Joe.
Thank
And
you.
I will reiterate that too. That the book is yeah, definitely. There's an autobiographical quality to it because he really talked about you can see that it's his days at Cal, and it's a fun read. It's so definitely worthwhile. All right. Thanks, Joe. All right, with that, obviously the last few days in the athletic department have been very interesting. Some probably cases of whiplash with all the things changing so quickly. So Will, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and maybe give us some insight on what's been going on, how things are going, how the team's holding up, and kind of where things are going from here.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks again. Always good to be here with you guys. And I'll just go here to my notes here. So on the campus side of things, we had two individuals from Berkeley win the Nobel Prize. Those were Reinhard Genzel and Jennifer Doudna. And for the first time since World War II, winners of the year's Nobel Prize will not be receiving their medals and diplomas from the King of Sweden in Stockholm, but they were doing it from the comfort of their home with their family. On the department side of things, we did have some excitement with men's basketball. We had a buzzer beater there against USF. It's finals week. Our athletes are, they're hard at work preparing and knocking out finals this week. Last week, right before we had this grid club meeting, we had an article that came out about running back Marcel Dancy, and he was nominated for the Burlsworth Trophy, which is for the nation's top walk-ons. Marcel, I mean, he's doing some amazing things, on the field and in the community, specifically in Oakland. He's making a huge impact there. He helped raise approximately $10,000 for a grocery giveaway for Buckhalter, elementary school in Oakland, shortly after the pandemic hit. And on to football, which we got that news, and I was excited. I was ready to watch the game, and then boom, we got hit with that. So basically, what I was told on before flying to the game, everybody tested, everybody was negative. They get there, everybody tested, everybody was negative. And then just prior to the game, I think a couple hours prior to the game, there was an individual who wasn't feeling well and ended up testing positive. And so I think that one, that positive kind of just that was the end. That kind of that knocked us out right there. And so basically there were arrangements that had to be made for this individual to travel back. The whole nine. It was just really tough on them. The guys were ready. They were ready to play. And so just abruptly, just that one thing, it put it on hold. But one of the positives that came out of it was just showing how resilient our kids were. I guess it was snowing up there, and the guys were outside having a snowball fight. So, I mean, it just showed you that even in the midst of this kind of challenging and really just a situation where, you know, it was just kind of a bummer. The guys, they were just still, you know, excited and just excited to be with each other. And they were out there having a snowball fight. So we thought that was just a positive thing there, and just showing that, you know, they're just happy and very resilient. And regarding the decision about Arizona, you know, conversations were had with Larry Scott, you know, were had with Arizona. And, you know, I guess Arizona is having a COVID problem as well, through their contact tracing. And there was just a lot of factors that just made this game like, hey, like, let's just call this one off. You know, they're having COVID problems. They just fired the coach, you know, them being 0-5, just a number of things that just made it kind of right just to say, you know what, let's just call this one off. So, you know, I think above all, you know, we just want to make sure our student athletes are safe. And it was a bummer to, you know, have the last two games, you know, basically called off. But again, we just want to make sure our student athletes and staff and everybody that's involved, we just want to make sure that they're safe. On another note, on a positive note, you know, just looking towards the future, signing day, early signing day is coming up Wednesday. You know, coach and the rest of the staff, they've been doing virtual in-home visits with the recruits and their families. Coach is excited about them, and we're looking to sign roughly 18 people for early signing period. So we're excited about that. Looking forward to the future. And yeah, that's about all I have for updates. And you know, if there's any questions that I can answer, I'll try my best.
All right, thanks, Will. Yeah, David had a few questions that he put into chat. David, you want to go ahead and unmute and let you at it?
Sure thing. Calling in early from Vacaville. I was just wondering, you think any Cal seniors are planning on returning, or are they going to jump to the NFL? And also regarding the transfer portal, may we gain anybody or maybe lose somebody? And anybody planning a trip to see TCU in September on the 9th?
Gotcha. Appreciate the questions. Appreciate the questions, man. So from my understanding, there is a rule in place to where if you're on the team and you want to return, there is no, you know, nothing that can block you from returning. Your scholarship should still be in place. So I don't have any specifics on, you know, who plan on returning and who's not. But any senior, basically this year won't count against you because of the situation that we're in. So if you want to come back, you should be able to come back. You'll, you know, come back on scholarship. Well, and what was the other question?
The transfer portal. Any hot quarterbacks want to come to Cal, or tight ends or anything?
I'm not sure. I haven't been updated on that. We'll just have to see. I think we'll see. I think Cal is a great place to come and transfer to. But we'll see. You know, I think under these circumstances, we'll have a lot of people coming back. And then, you know, we're excited about the incoming recruiting class.
Yeah.
So don't have any specifics on the transfer portal though.
And one last quick question. Since Cal is not going to play Arizona, even if they could play somebody, why does it have to be a conference team? Why couldn't they go outside and play San Jose State or somebody? Or
yeah, that's a good question. I just think for, you know, conference purposes, you know, just trying to get in as many conference games as possible. And again, it's just unfortunate that we're unable to play Arizona, and you know, we weren't able to play Washington State. But yeah, they hadn't given us any indication or any reasoning behind, you know, not going out and getting a non-conference game. But I can just tell you, just they want to get as many conference games in as possible. I think it's tied to the media and the TV media rights and everything. So I think
I was
they were
just
trying to get as
wondering,
many conference games in as possible.
I was wondering how they reached in a fishbowl and picked out Arizona for us to play, or why we couldn't have played Utah or somebody else. Let's see.
I think Will might be frozen there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, one thought I would have on why we couldn't go out of conference is that I know that the reason that we were playing only conference games was because of everybody using the same testing protocol. And I think that was kind of part of the decision why we'd be able to play, is because everybody would be on that testing protocol and the same one and the same procedures. So going out of conference might not have that same level of safety. That would be kind of one thought of that. And then why we couldn't play somebody else is that I know that this weekend all six all teams were paired up with somebody, so there was really nobody that had a free weekend to be able to play. And Rick, I think what was saying too is that it didn't look like with the contact tracing that we'd even be able to field a team. I think it was on both sides. So that was it. And Dave, to answer your question about making a trip to TCU, all I can say personally is that we have Southwest credits for a trip that we were going to make to Las Vegas to play UNLV that we've got to use up. So I don't know, maybe we'll go. I don't know. And then Greg, you wanted to make a comment on a TCU trip.
Yeah, there's a group called Get Travel, and Gary's familiar with them. And every year, once every 2 years, he does a major road trip. He's been doing this for like 15 years. And I know when I last talked to him a few months ago, before things got really nuts for the fall, that was sort of in the long-term planning. So my guess is, that's the one that looks the most interesting next year. And then the year after that's Notre Dame. So that's huge. So I would guess he'd be putting something together. When we went down to Ole Miss, there was 150 people on that trip. So I think that'll probably be decided once we know more about how everything's going with the pandemic, probably in the April-May timeframe.
All right, thanks. Will, you're back. Yeah, so anybody else?
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I figured you kind of froze up, so I figured you were having some internet issues there. Anybody else have any other questions for Will? Okay, Will, thanks again. And thanks for, everything, for joining us each week and giving us the inside scoop. We appreciate it. All right. Okay, so on to our main event. Okay, so one thing that I neglected to do that I usually do is I forgot to ask Marissa to send me a bio. So I'm hoping that that everything on her LinkedIn page is accurate. So Dr. Marissa Nichols is with us tonight, and she is the Associate Athletic Director for Student Athlete Development, and she's the director of the Cameron Institute, which she's going to be talking about tonight. As I was looking over her pedigree here, I can kind of understand why she got the job. It's kind of like one of those things you've been training your whole life for this. She is completely UNLV. Bachelor's, master's, and PhD, all in educational areas in counseling and human services. Her PhD is in higher ed leadership. She also worked at UNLV. I don't know, maybe they've got some dirt on her. They won't let her leave. I don't know what's going on here, but she was at doing, I'm sorry, I didn't write down what she was doing at UNLV, but she also worked at Boston University, Director of Leadership and Career Development. She's done a consulting, life skills and counseling. And as I say, that all seems like just a perfect preparation for heading up the Cameron Institute. So with that, I hope I got it all right. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to and introduce you to Dr. Marissa Nichols. So go ahead and unmute yourself and have at it.
Gary, thank you so much. Thank you for the kind introduction and the invitation. This is actually my first Grid Club meeting, so thank you for welcoming me. I've been at Cal a little bit over a year now, and I'll just provide a little bit of a story, I think, to help shape that bio that Gary shared. I was about a year out from finishing my PhD, and I had gone out and done some networking, and I was really set on working at Cal. And hopefully you won't hold this against me, but I also did visit Stanford on that networking visit. But I essentially brought my resume and portfolio of work, and I was, looking for a full-time role in this field. And I had been doing this work at UNLV. They had recruited me to come back and build out their version of the Cameron Institute while I did my doctorate. So that's how I ended up staying at UNLV. And then I came to Cal, I had everything ready, and they didn't have anything available at the time. And then I had the opportunity to move across the country and build out the program at Boston University, so their version of the Cameron Institute. And then this position populated, and I couldn't believe what Cal had done with the role. And I went for it with everything I had, and I consider this to truly be a dream type of role. So at the time when I was networking here, I couldn't imagine it had come to fruition in the way it has. And so it's always a fun story to tell the students too about, the kind of putting yourself out there, planting the seeds. I remember the people that I spoke with at Cal still remember me, that visit that I made. So thought I'd share that too as a little bit of a background. And I'm really excited to give you more context on the Cameron Institute. And so from what I understand, Gary, if it's still the plan, I put some slides together for the Grid Club here. So I'll talk through and basically give the foundation, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think you should be able to share your screen. If not, I'll make you a co-host.
Perfect. First, just out of curiosity, just by a show of hands, who has heard of the Cameron Institute? Well, I'm glad. Will's one of our biggest ambassadors for that. That's great. So quite a few. Great. And then who feels like, just give me a thumbs up if you feel like you know quite a bit about it. Give me a, middle of the road if you know some, and then give me a thumbs down if you really don't know much beyond the idea. Okay, fantastic. That's really helpful. Thank you. All right, let me share my screen.
I'm sorry. I know. Hold on.
Actually, let's try this. Okay. I want to start with just giving some context, and know that every athletic department in the country has some form of student athlete development. So back in the early 2000s, basically the NCAA said, we need to make sure we're developing the student athlete more holistically. We need to make sure that we're comprehensive and providing them with career support and community engagement opportunities. So this started this whole field called life skills, and then it's transformed into student athlete development. And now we're at the point where, as I mentioned, every school has some form of this opportunity. And then what Cal has done in terms of the wonderful gift from Brian Cameron, it's allowed for a really robust model with more staff and resource support that most schools in the country don't have access to. So that already sets Cal up to be really unique in terms of student athlete development. And then the way we've been talking about this model is, as everyone knows, and I know many of you, are alum of this incredible institution. So, we're at the #1 public institution at UC Berkeley. We have this wonderful record of athletic success. through Cal Athletics. And then you pair it with this third prong of a really formal, structured student athlete development program. So essentially, we're looking at this as like a three-pronged approach to what Cal Athletics can offer incoming student athletes and current student athletes at Cal. I wanted to share a little bit, just our dashboard here. So we're very thoughtful about our values. It's a big part of our practice and who we are. We're always aiming to, for the highest level possible. We're very data driven. So my background in my PhD program, I basically got to study what keeps me up at night and what excites me the most, which is what goes into being a successful student athlete. And so I took that research and I essentially apply it to my work as a practitioner. And so everything we do is backed by data and research, and we do a really good job and are working on being basically a model for the country of how we measure success. So you'll see clarity as one of our values. We're very clear on what the Cal student athlete is becoming, and I'll share more about that in the next slide. We're very systems oriented because Brian Cameron's vision was to create a model that served 850 student athletes, not just, pockets of student athletes, but really reaching as many as we could. So we're very systems oriented. And we also are working to build trust. We want to deliver and do what we say we're going to do and build rapport and integrity along the way. Our framework is called the California Way. We recently published it and it'll go live very soon. I'll talk more about that and what went into the California Way. And then we have 4 pillars within the Cameron Institute. And just for another sort of fact for this group, is it initially started, you might know this as 3 pillars. And when I came into the department, we certainly saw an opportunity to build out a model that included sports psychology, because Cal Athletics has never had their own in-house sports psychology practitioner. So we worked with Brian Cameron and worked closely with Jim and others in the department to ensure that could would be a great fit. And we recruited Dr. Greg Chow, who you'll see on the next slide, to serve that role. And so we've become even more comprehensive and holistic by adding in that sports psychology component. This is our team to date. I have to tell you, I've never hired a team virtually before, but that's what happened. So I came to Cal last fall in September. I got to spend a few months on the ground floor evaluating what we needed and what our goals were. And I went on a listening tour, and then I actually had a personal health injury. I had a concussion, and then the pandemic happened. So that was a really interesting way to get this off and going. And all the hiring and recruiting has been done online just due to our circumstances, but I couldn't be prouder of the group that we've put together so far. They are incredible and they're doing really amazing work. And we'll get to build out to a team of up to 12, which is really amazing. So this is the start of our team here.
Marissa, can
yes.
you interrupt? Your slides are not advancing. We're still on the first one here.
Oh, thank you so much for letting me know that. Okay, so the last slide was just a recap of what the dashboard that I mentioned. Apologies, and thank you for letting me know that, Gary. So this slide is our team, and Dr. Sean Hendricks is our Chief of Staff. He oversees the leadership and personal development pillar of the Cameron Institute. Dr. Greg Chow, who I just mentioned, oversees all of our high performance and well-being services. So he's a trained sports psychology professional. He doesn't do the clinical work, although he's capable of that. We've really been thoughtful about how we set that role up, and I'm happy to take more questions on that. Dr. Benetti Vita oversees our career development pillar, and then Bobby Thompson is our interim director of operations. He's been at Cal for 4 years now, and we had the chance to transition his role to be a part of the team, given that he had been doing student athlete development work previously before the Cameron Institute came to fruition. So we'll get to hire our formal director of community engagement and strategic partnerships this spring. So that'll round out, basically every pillar has a director. We'll get to then hire a series of 5 to 6 student athlete development advisors, which will serve and report to the different directors and basically have the chance to advise student athletes on the California Way model, which I'll share more about briefly and essentially make sure that they're meeting all the different benchmarks over the 4 years at Cal. The California Way is our innovative framework, and we spent a year crafting this through a lot of data research, best practices, a lot of conversations with coaches and student athletes, and needs assessment. We did a lot of work to put this together, and it's essentially our set of aspirational outcomes that helps the Cal student athlete reach their potential while they're competing at Cal and then thrive for a lifetime. So these are the 8 different aspirational outcomes. You'll actually see it behind me printed off, and there's 3 sub outcomes for every major outcome. So this is the abbreviated version, and I wanted to make sure that I shared and highlighted that today. We are clear that the first tenet here, multidimensional, excelling in school, sport, and life. Our goal here is to ensure that we're providing students with the tools to, thrive in all of their identities. So they're not just an athlete, they're more than an athlete. We are very clear, by the way, I have to make sure to reiterate that every single outcome you're going to see has a clear behavioral metric attached to it, and then sub metrics too. So all of this is very measured as well, and I'm happy to share more about how we're measuring success in these different areas. And then we have clear services that align back to each tenet of the California Way. So authentic leadership, we're working to help student athletes develop their leadership abilities through their core values and their purpose. I just want to note that many of us have learned over time that we think of leadership sometimes as for certain people or designated to team captains, but within the Institute, we view leadership philosophically as something that's accessible to all of us at any moment. And so it's a matter of developing our skill set and being able to show up and communicate effectively, support each other, manage yourself well. These are all different assets of leadership so that you can start learning from day one that you arrive on campus. The third one here, team-oriented. Everyone knows that student athletes are very team-oriented on their own, but our goal here is to help them really understand and articulate in interviews their unique contributions to teams. And whether that's their sport team or their academic team in the classroom or a team in the community, how can we help student athletes understand their unique contributions, have them on a resume, and articulate them in job interviews? The next set of outcomes here, committed to a high performance mindset. We believe that this unlocks so much of the California Way, and clearly student athletes who are competing at Cal have a high performance mindset. And how can we optimize this? So we work on growth mindset, we work on resilience and grit, and I'm going to show you in a moment here how we do this, but these are some of the major aspirational outcomes for us. Immersion across campus and in the community. We want to make sure that we are unlocking partnerships and opportunities for students to gain experiences that are meaningful and transformational. We also put together an outcome around gratitude.
We'll go out in a second, Marco.
One of the big things that we heard from coaches in our listening tour was that there's a lot of highs and lows in this journey. And many of you who were student athletes or have, family or friends who are student athletes understand that it's tough, but it's also the most rewarding experience. That's why I do what I do, is I really saw how it helped me unlock so much of my potential. And I really believe in the college athletic experience. And so we're teaching students how to cultivate, express gratitude as part of this aspirational outcome, and then want to create a culture too of giving back to future generations. And whether that's with their time, whether that's financially, whether that's mentorship, and we have some platforms to do that, but we're trying to create this culture of giving back as well. And then this is a big one, as they all are, but we want to make sure when the Cal student athlete leaves, they are positioned to land their first golden opportunity and flourish in their chosen career. And for anyone that knows Brian Cameron, this was his whole purpose and dream behind creating the Cameron Institute, was to make sure that students are set up for exponential success when they leave. So it's not enough for us to say, oh, yes, do they have a job? Great. It's actually a job that's golden. It's a job that is something that matches their skills, their interests, their inclinations. It's something that, is really that first major step towards a thriving career. And career can mean a lot of different things. So the next set of slides shares an overview of some of the services. So now I'm going to get into the how. So I shared a little bit about, our dashboard and what we're about, our team, our model, the California Way. And now I wanted to give you a preview and look at some of the different services we've delivered this fall. So the Cameron Institute is in its 4th month of launch. We're considering this a rolling launch. These were some of the services that we rolled out at the beginning of the semester. And I won't go through each one, but I'll sort of highlight the different services as I go through the various months. But one of the most important things to know is that we have a first-year class that's really important foundation. And so we've partnered with the Athletic Studies Center to ensure that the Cameron Institute goals are positioned into that class. It's a great segue and transition to the university. We want 100% of our first-year students to be in that class. We're getting closer to that number, but that's a really big foundational piece. And part of, again, Brian's vision was that career development starts day one on campus. And in this class, they take a career interest inventory, for example. So they right off the bat are able to learn more about their interests and skills and see how that could transfer and translate to different majors. The support and skill building groups was part of our response to the pandemic, and that was overseen by Dr. Greg Chow. Gary asked that I spend a little time talking a little bit about the mental health and these services in particular, given the state of what's happening and everything we just talked about with football and them missing out on different opportunities. So this was a chance for students to come in and process what was happening around their transition back to this academic year and it being a lot different than what they had potentially envisioned. We responded to what we're calling the second pandemic, the racial injustice, and by hosting a series of conversations where we partnered with some treasured campus collaborators to have conversations about these challenges and how we got here and what it means to be an ally and what it means to support your teammates during these challenging times. The Golden Bear Network, I'm gonna save that one because that's one I want to spend a little bit more time on. We also launched an app, the Calm app. If anyone uses Headspace or Calm, it's a really great meditation app that helps support sleep and well-being. There's a lot of science behind it, which is why we chose it as well. Jason Kidd, who's as an alum, also supports that app. So that's part of why we went that route too. But essentially, our delivery of services looks different. It could be a class, as you heard, it could be a workshop, it could be an app. There's a lot of different ways in which we reach the students and coaches. I'll just highlight a couple new things you didn't see on the last calendar. So this was October. We launched a leadership series, which essentially allows students the space to reflect and grow in the different leadership capacities we've identified. That's open to all student athletes. We have a lot of different affinity groups, meaning student athletes have created clubs within athletics based on their interests. So we have a student athlete business network. We have a student athlete advisory committee. We have the Racial Justice Council now. And so a lot of these different affinity groups, you'll see some of their meetings posted on this calendar as well. The mental performance and well-being services that are available to all include team workshops, one-to-one services with students. I'm going to actually save that and share more about it in a bit. We launched in November this student athlete development advising and office hours, so students can book one-to-one sessions with us to look at the California Way, to identify areas of growth, to identify where they're doing really well, and then figure out what services might meet their needs. We also launched recruiting services in December, and that was a great way for us to meet with potential student athletes and work to get as many of the students that the coaches are hoping to land here as possible. We finished our leadership series this December, and then again, you'll see some of these services are reoccurring where coaches can work with us through very different workshops and mechanisms. I wanted to just take a moment to capture per Gary's thoughts on, highlighting the well-being component here tonight. Dr. Greg Chow is in the high performance and well-being pillar as of last month. So these numbers have even grown. He's basically worked with 28 of our 30 teams. He has a menu of different workshop services that are available, whether it's resilience or well-being, having hard conversations, being able to perform under pressure. There's a lot of different topics that students and coaches can choose from, and he delivers over a series of 4 sessions. Some of these things I've talked about, but just to kind of put in context, the reach and the scale in such a short time is something I wanted to make sure that we highlighted. The one-to-one sessions for student athletes under his purview, those are coach identified. So coaches can select student athletes from their team with unique mental performance issues. And Greg can work with them directly to support them over short-term periods of maybe 3 to 6 sessions or even longer. Greg, is one trying to serve 850 as a sport and performance psychologist. So we have to be really mindful of how his hours are distributed. A lot of what we do is training the trainers. So we're working really closely with our coaches, because if we can train our coaches on the most effective way to work with their student athletes, I mean, they're masters, they're amazing. You don't get much better than the coaches we have at Cal. And we can also find ways to support them so that they're delivering in a way that's affecting their students in the most effective ways. Just another slide on some of the different ways that particular pillar has reached our student athletes. You'll see a lot of distinct sessions being conducted, a lot of different tools being provided, and a lot of transferability. One of the things that we focus on when speaking with Brian about this position was, it's not just about the mental performance in a game, it's the skill set that can transfer beyond. It's being able to perform in an interview, it's being able to perform in all different domains. And so we work across the whole institute to make sure that any service we're delivering is transferable, whether it's school, sport, or life. And then before we jump into some questions, one other service I wanted to make sure we highlight that I mentioned earlier is the Golden Bear Network. And this is our home, our new home for helping student athletes land their first golden opportunity. And if you're not in the network yet, we would absolutely love and be grateful to have you. It's comprised of alumni and professionals who want to give back to students in career capacities, whether it's internships or jobs you have that you'd like to offer, or you'd like to mentor on your careers and how you got to where you were. And even if you've are in a different phase and have retired, you still have so much to offer on your path and what you did over your career. And our students just need to be immersed to different pipelines and paths. That's part of the setup here, is helping them expand what's possible. So being able to work with alumni and professionals is a big part of helping our students land that first golden opportunity. So resume reviews, cover letters, informational interviews, those are all things that you can select to give back to students in this capacity. And we'd be so lucky to have you if you were interested in supporting in this particular way. These are some of the ways that we're looking to expand over the spring. We are launching a 4-year plan for students so they can see at year 1, here are the steps that are recommended to me in order to land that golden opportunity. Year 2, I should be, focused on, securing a mentor. I should attend, as you'll see here, industry nights we'll launch this spring too, to bring in different professionals from different careers to talk to our students about possibilities. We'll also be launching a 2nd-year class in the fall. So we're working on positioning that now, and that essentially will build off that 1st-year class I mentioned. And that 2nd-year class will be a chance to build all the technical career skills needed, whether it's exploring what majors are available, to writing your first resume or cover letter, to landing an internship your sophomore year. So we see 4-credit classes as a really big part of what we do, because it aligns seamlessly with the student's schedule. They're already so overtaxed and busy that if we can create classes for credit that help build these skills, we see that as a really great service delivery. And then I hope everyone looks out for our celebratory launch in January and February. We are launching some videos and press releases to bring all of this to life even more. and really, again, consider this a rolling launch. I have a really clear sort of 10-year goal of what this could be. We want to be the best in the country. We talk about world class a lot, and there's a lot to be done. And so every year we're going to be continuing to expand. And I'm so proud of, the first few months under our belt. We're getting ready to put together a report to show, how our students are receiving our services, what value they share they're getting. And again, each year we're going to have a very big assessment around the California Way to measure all those different aspirational goals and be able to report out on success. So that's a big part of what we do. It is making sure that what we say is happening is actually happening, and that the Cal student athlete is truly becoming all those different things that you saw in the California Way. So I'm really grateful for the chance to share more, and I would welcome any questions and comments and feedback. This is a really passionate and accomplished and dedicated group. So I'm all ears, and yeah, I'll let you go from here.
Marissa, thank you. We do have some questions that have been coming into chat. So I'm just going to go ahead and let everybody go ahead and ask their question. Joe, you had the first one.
Yeah, hey, Marissa, welcome to Cal. And I was just curious, are these programs going to be available to the student athletes post-graduation when they may have a little bit more time to actually focus on some of the career development things such as that?
Great question, Joe. Currently, our scope really is focused on the current Cal student athlete, but that's not to say that we can't expand that focus. I think we need to do an exceptional job with this audience before we can expand even further. I will say that in the Golden Bear Network, if you are only 3 years out, you can ask to be mentored and receive support from our professionals. We have 250 professionals that have registered so far in just, I think, a month and a half of launching, that have raised their hand to give back. And so we're hoping that those students who are a few years out can also benefit from that service.
Thank you.
Okay, and Rick, you had a question.
Yeah, my question actually was similar to Joe's, is what is the availability of these classes and resources to the alumni student athletes? And it sounds like if they're within the first 3 years and they're welcome to participate.
Yeah, so Rick, that's accurate, especially for the career development. But if you have ideas or other suggestions, of course, we welcome them. That would be a very cutting edge and innovative thing to do, is to offer services for alumni who are further out. That would certainly be something, or a model that hasn't been tapped or investigated yet in this field.
That actually sounds like it's something that might be a good partnership with CAA.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Leslie, you had a question.
Yes, hi Marissa, and welcome again to Cal. My question is about the different kinds of sports that we have. Looking at there's a fairly radical difference between a swimmer who's got that solitary and endurance needs, and a football player, or somebody on crew, which are like totally sport, group effort kinds of sports. How do you tailor the services to the different needs of the different sports?
Leslie, you're tapping in on like one of the $1 million questions. So a couple of things I'll share. When it's at the team level, like when the coach is requesting our services, there's some background that happens so that we go in pretty equipped, understanding a lot of the needs more at the team level. Now, I recognize that doesn't get to the individual level. In the individual level, I would say that the advising, the one-to-one advising, which will eventually become a really prominent part of what we do when we're fully staffed at 12, that'll be something that the student every semester is meeting with one of us to make sure that their 4-year plan, that they're progressing. And my dream for this is that we can create a technology or platform that would actually, the students take an assessment, we interview them, we have all this data, and it populates a really unique 4-year plan for them that builds in all these different opportunities that you saw tonight, plus anything happening on campus or in the community. That's a dream that is further out, that would really tailor things. But in the meantime, doing our best to offer diverse resources. So you saw there was a lot of different like forms of delivery that sometimes students might gravitate to that Golden Bear Network because it's online and they can do it in their own time and they can find someone really unique to what they need. Whereas others might benefit from being a part of a workshop with other student athletes from other teams because their goal is to really build community. So I think offering diverse resources, and then us, finally, I'll say, analyzing our plan. So we are, as you heard, very interested in the data and looking at the end of this year, who's missing, like who isn't seeking our services, who aren't we reaching and why? And then creating some thoughtful pipelines to make sure that underrepresented students and vulnerable populations are finding ways that we can meet them too. So I really appreciate that question. It's something on our minds as well.
Steve Swat, you had a question.
Yes, I understand that the Institute is still in launch mode, but what kind of feedback have you been getting from the student athletes so far?
Great question, Steve. So far, we're actually putting together our mid-year report, which has our first round of data. So students have been completing surveys on our services to date. I'd be happy to share that actually with Gary so that we can follow up and send it to the group. So it's been more anecdotal to start. A lot of really positive comments and quotes and feedback we've received. And I think the best indicator of success for us, a couple of things is one, on our advisory board call with Brian Cameron, we had some students who were able to share their experiences so far. And then also anytime students are reoccurring and coming back or telling others about it and we're seeing numbers increase, I think that's also been a good indicator for us that we're on the right track. But we won't really know that fully until we finish collecting that data and then put together a report to share our progress.
Thank you.
Greg, you had a question.
Yeah, very impressive presentation, Marissa. Thank you for that. I was wondering, and we've heard a lot from other speakers during the year that Gary's lined up about the huge financial negative impacts from COVID, both on the athletic department specifically and the university in general. Has that had any impact on your institute? I know you had some private, you know, the private donation and everything.
Greg, thanks for the kind words. I would say that in the beginning, when we had the hiring freeze and we're still on it, we had to slow down quite a bit on our approach. So we really had to mirror what was happening across the university. And that delayed us a little bit. I think we're still okay and recovered, but that certainly had an impact. And then we're grateful to be able to lean on that endowment to continue the hiring process, even though Cal Athletics, as every other school right now, is navigating how to bounce back from the tremendous, deficits that have occurred. So thankfully, we saw, I guess another example would be, we have some of the money to do things, but we're not putting in a lot of requests. We're trying to be mindful and mirror, how other departments in the athletic department and on campus are proceeding as well, even though we're in a unique situation.
Right. I would think what you put together would be a huge, nice competitive advantage for recruiting for football and the other sports for Cal.
That's spot on. A lot of coaches actually have shared that they believe that because sometimes we can't compete in the arms race, that is Alabama or other Power 5 schools, but being able to do this extremely well could be one of our recruiting tools, especially for non-revenue sports. So I even heard our men's soccer coach, Kevin Grimes, share, gosh, I can't compete sometimes with some of these other schools, but in terms of resources, not on the field. But what we have, for example, is that the institute that is unique. And so you're right on that that's going to be a big advantage. And we're looking at a special website. We're looking at different ways we can really position this so everyone understands what's out there.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, Greg actually kind of stole my comment. I was going to talk about that on the recruiting side, that this is an amazing tool, because I think I can't imagine. I know that this was true years and years ago, and I got to imagine it's still true today, that the greatest influence on a recruit's decision on where to go is his parents. and the parents look at a much bigger picture than the playing sports, football or basketball or crew or whatever, that they're really looking at what support their kids are going to have and preparing for the future, because they know that most of them aren't going to have that career in sports. So I would imagine that this is something that not only being recruited to, or being talked to the recruit, but their parents very strongly.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Rick, you had a question.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the presentation. It's very aspirational what the Cameron Institute is out to achieve. And one of the questions I have is you talk about the golden opportunity. How is that being defined? What is the definition of a golden opportunity, so that you know when an athlete is student athlete is?
I love it, Rick. Thank you for that question. These are the things I especially love about this role, is being able to try to define these concepts and measure them and then report out, because return on investment here is a requirement when you have an incredible monetary donation. I mean, that's something I value anyway, but being able to show our value. So on this note, some of the things we've worked on, and we're still ironing it out. The students will answer this question in April. So that'll be our first test, like the end of the academic year. One of the questions on our major assessment is, does this opportunity like exceed your expectations, meet your expectations? Is it below your expectations? And then we have some items that ask if this basically, if the position or the opportunity aligns with their skill set, if it aligns with their interests, if it aligns with their different inclinations. So not just asking them if it does, but being able to them give us examples of how it does too. So this assessment is actually like a very reflective tool that we're creating, because it allows the student to sit and really think about, does this position align with all that I am after, and being able to, tell us more about that as a way of measurement. So we're still working through that, but it's certainly goes above and beyond what they thought could have been possible when they graduate, if that helps.
So is it more subjective based upon the individual student athlete versus a defined metric coming in?
Well, we have a couple other, so more objective metrics around the career development. So for example, we're asking questions like how many individuals in their network would actually take an action on your behalf, is one of the items. So it's easy to say, oh, on LinkedIn I have 20 new connections, but we want to build a more transformational network. So we'll ask a more objective question about, tell us how many or in your network would take an action on your behalf. What kind of action? Tell us their names. So trying to get more objective and concrete, because building that network, I think, is a big part of this golden opportunity as well. Another more objective measure would be looking at that in that first year class, there's the interests inventory that they filled out, and seeing what correlation there is between how they answered those questions and what opportunity they have when they leave, and if those interests are matching or mirroring in any way. I'm thinking offhand too of some other of the career outcomes, but hopefully that helps shed a little more insight there.
So it sounds like a layered process where they'll start first year, build the second year, third year, fourth year.
Yes, exactly. And then we'll have that data over that 4-year period too, which is exciting. Not this year, of course, we'll only get 1 year from our seniors, but being able to make comparisons over time will be a big part of this.
I had a question for you. You had mentioned that behind you have the different guiding principles on the board behind you. I don't know that you mentioned, what are the green dots?
Oh, well, I had a very COVID safe gathering in September in the backyard where the team got to meet each other for the first time. So they all started at Cal April, May, August, September. And so we got together and we voted on which aspirational outcomes our student athletes would knock out of the park this year based on our services. So it was a pretty even spread of the green dots. I've never had that question asked before. I'm glad you asked. This is my home office, by the way. I'm not on campus. I don't think I'll be back on campus, sadly, until maybe the summer. That might be a stretch. It's hard to say. So
Well, one of the things that stands out to me about your home office is I don't see any Cal swag hanging behind you.
I need to work on that.
You do. We can send up a collection. We all have extra if you want. And
Do we need a GoFundMe or something?
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't want it to get back to Jim that I don't have any Cal gear, because I definitely do. I wish I could reach for my helmet. There's a Cal football helmet that I have at the house, but I live in an in-law and the family upstairs is really lovely, and their 9-year-old is a big fan. So I have a sense he might have the helmet upstairs, but I'll work on that for my Zoom positioning here.
Okay, yeah, because someone like Roxy Bernstein took us a tour of his house, and so did Jim McGill. So anyway, and the other
Give her some
question,
time.
I'm sorry.
So give her a little time.
Yeah, we'll give her some time, and I know it's a little tough to get out shopping these days. So, but another question too is, and I know that you said that the similar program you did at Boston University, and I know that there are a few other around the country that are doing kind of similar types of things that we're looking kind of really being the model for it. Have you been getting interest from other universities, or have other universities kind of be keeping an eye on what you're doing there?
Yes, we have. And I actually I'm really honored to serve on these 2 different task forces for our field. And one of them is setting the industry standards for success, because we don't have anything yet for this field to we don't have core competencies that say like, this is what each school should be doing and how they should be doing it and what success is. So I get to serve on a board to help develop that and to show how we measure success too. And so I think that puts me in a position to be really privy to what other schools are doing. And I'm really grateful to be pretty well connected and have done quite a bit of speaking to in our field. So there's a lot of schools I work with closely that are, really dear colleagues: Texas Tech, Syracuse, Ohio State, Florida State, Arizona, some non-Power 5 schools too. So yeah, and they're definitely intrigued and been asking more questions. I think once we go more public with the launch too in the spring, I think that'll generate even more interest.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Rick, you had one more question?
Yeah, I'm curious how, this year obviously it's been challenging for all of us. And so here we are living in this twilight zone of a year. How do you feel that these circumstances are going to impact the fundamental development of the Cameron student on an ongoing basis as things move forward?
Oh, these are really great questions. It's interesting to get your soul start online, because we didn't have this and then we didn't transition from in-person to online. We've started the Institute this year, like we launched it online. So that'll be a really unique pivot for us as far as getting back in person. I actually think we will hang on to some of these online mechanisms because it allows us to reach students who normally might not seek the services. So you all might be familiar with the walk between the football stadium and Haas Pavilion. And a lot of the students tell us that if you're a Haas student athlete or a stadium student athlete, you don't go in between, you kind of stay to your area. And so thinking about how we can still offer different services online, I think actually is going to serve us well to reach more students who might not normally come up to the football stadium, which is where we'll be housed eventually to work with us. I think that students are going to have a really different perspective after going through this experience. I mean, all of us, I have a different perspective now after having this experience. And I think it'll foster some gratitude that may not have happened if not for having sort of everything stripped away. And so I'm thinking that students hopefully might be even more inclined to, maximize the experience if they didn't get, one of their years was sort of stripped away because of this experience. And maybe they'll be more inclined to dive into some of this holistic development, given that they're seeing maybe how precious this time is even more so. So those are some initial thoughts that come to mind. I think also making sure that, like, when you're building a new brand, we consider ourselves a startup organization in a new department, and we're constantly educating on what we do and who we are. And Jim says this a lot, we're building the plane as we're flying it. So a lot of our delivery, it's a constant challenge to be doing that online. But I think once we get in person, eventually, I guess we're setting the stage, right? And it'll only continue to improve from there. So we're doing the best we can, as everyone is, as you all are too, in our new reality.
Does anybody else have any questions for Marissa?
I would just like to add, I don't think she should share anything with any Pac-12 schools too soon.
This is Pat Long, and I just have one observation. I think what you're trying to do is stunning and very inspirational. The only guilt part that I feel is that I feel like every four-year student at Berkeley could benefit from this kind of intervention and counseling and mentoring. And I know it's, a fiscal and impossibility to do that. And I just think that the athletes, if they don't understand what's the word? What a gift this institute can be for their undergraduate education, we're missing something, because most of the other students aren't getting this kind of mentorship. And that's my only observation, is that, wow, this is great. I would have loved if I had something similar. I sort of swam upstream like probably most undergraduates did when they were trying to find themselves in the 60s.
Yeah.
Observation, not trying to put you on the spot or anything, just an observation.
Oh, it's great. I appreciate your very generous words as well. And I hear you. I think the reason, I'll just comment real quick, is the NCAA created this type of work because they felt like student athletes had a more restricted path, less opportunity to pursue internships and jobs, and less career development support. So I think one could make an argument or case for why that intervention is even more important. However, I completely agree with you on how beneficial it would be for all students, and maybe we can create a really amazing model that the campus could look to adopt, or we could expand in a really unique way. So that's interesting, and thank you for sharing that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, well, with that, Marissa, thank you so much. I mean, this program, the Institute, is absolutely amazing. And when I first really heard about it and understood what it was, that my first thought was, we've got to get you here and let everybody at Sac Bears know about this, because it's such an important program. It's such a fantastic thing. So really appreciate you taking the time to join us here tonight. I think everybody has a better understanding of what it is that we're doing, and the incredible, and I think Pat said it really well, the incredible gift that this is to our student athletes. So thank you, and keep it going.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your thoughtful questions. I love the challenging questions that come in. I appreciate the chance to share with you. And if you have any feedback for me on my delivery or how we can make it even more palatable for others to understand, I always welcome that. So I hope to work and connect with you further. And thank you again for having me.
Go Bears!
Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
So with that, just since it's our last meeting, just a few words. First of all, thanks to all of the folks from out of town that have joined us. At our meetings, it's great to have everybody here. I hope that maybe, it's hard to say at this point, but maybe we'll be able to meet back in person again in 2021. A lot of people to thank. I want to thank the committee, Patty and Nick and Leanna and Leslie and Steve. You saw Steve was finished up straightening teeth there, but I don't know if he's still on the meeting or not. But to thanks everybody for the committee. Without them, we could not have done this year, or any year for that matter. So also want to thank, I know Will had to jump off, but to thank Will and Leslie's cat and all of our speakers, Marissa tonight, and I know actually Robert Paler was with us earlier. I don't know if he's still on or not. Was in the meeting tonight. So all the great speakers and our opposition media that were in with us. And, thanks everybody for who's attended this year and that have supported us in this just absolutely crazy year. I think that this worked out pretty well with the Zoom meetings. I said there's parts are going to continue on. Upcoming, we're going to be back, we'll be back next year. I don't know whether we'll be back on Zoom or if we're going to be back in person or some hybrid. It's just too hard to tell. I think things are still, as I started saying this back in March, is that the only thing that we know for absolute certain is that whatever we know today could change tomorrow. So, so we don't know what everything's going to look like, but I know that, we are Sac Bears Cal fans now, so we're part of the CAA chapter. So I'm going to be merging the mailing list. So everybody's going to be getting information on things that we're going to be doing for, not just for athletics. And I'm hoping that we can put on something, maybe in the spring, maybe another Zoom meeting. It may, maybe for something for basketball or something that's not associated with sports, particularly just something in the university. So, but just keep on the lookout for more of our activities. And
to the moderator,
what's that?
To the moderator who has quarterbacked all these discussions, hats off to you. It's fabulous.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank you.
Gary.
Thank you. It's a lot of it's selfish. It's a lot of fun. But I appreciate that and appreciate all the support that everybody's been providing. And but the last thing, just kind of before I sign off, sort of like I started one of our earlier meetings. Every one of these meetings, as great as it's been to have everybody here, I've been missing Jeff, and he's was such an incredible part of our club, and I, when I watch people logging into the meeting, I expect to see Jeff's name pop up because he would have loved this, and he would have been asking questions and being cheering on like he always did. So with that, miss you, Jeff. And we'll see the rest of you in the fall, if not before. As I say, we're going to try to have some more activities, hopefully on Zoom, or maybe if things get to the point where we can start meeting a little bit. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And thanks, everybody. And go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Any Tiny Bates awards?
I know we're not going to be doing one this year for sure, but they're going to happen again. Absolutely. Because you don't have, with the seniors, we don't know who's going to be staying and because nobody lost eligibility this year. And quite frankly, to me, it's kind of, 4 games. I think technically everybody could redshirt this year. So, kind of thinking of it that way. So, all right. So good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye, Gary. Thank you.